Okay, we are live with coverage of war in the Middle East. I am Price Givens, and we are broadcasting on Tangled News. Now, the main broadcast is on Tangled.com. And we are also trying a broadcast on a brand new YouTube channel, which has no subscribers and no viewers. And once we get that sorted out, we will then add X and possibly Twitch into the mix. Now, Amjad Ali is in the chat on Tangled. I appreciate you so much, Amjad Ali. You're going to get a shout out in the scrolling list of names of our new subscribers on the bottom, and you deserve it. You deserve it big. I'm going to check my mic a little bit here. This is a new streaming environment for me. Of course, Amjad Ali, as you know, and everyone on Tangled knows probably, I have streamed hundreds of times in my life. But this is a new setup, new studio, new production, and we're just going to give it a try, see how it goes. So I appreciate you guys for joining in. And there's a couple things I want to cover. Let me just switch to that. I've got a couple of key headlines. These are milestones that are currently taking place or have taken place in the last few days. Of course, we're talking about war with Iran waged against the United States and Israel for now. We, as of last night, we started to get news reports that the water desalination facilities are in the Gulf region are being targeted. Now, the first reports I saw of that were Iran targeting the water desalination plants in other countries. I think possibly Bahrain or United Arab Emirates, and that is an important escalation because the countries Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, and UAE derive the vast majority of their drinking water from desalination plants. So that is an escalation that we do not want to see. And of course, we're aware that Tehran, the city, has been running low on water for months. And I'm not sure the source of their water, but it certainly opens them up to being targeted to cut off what water supply they do have. That is an escalation. Of course, oil refineries are being targeted and have done, but that's escalating. That is happening more and more. In addition to the Iran announcement that they were shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil exports flow out of the Persian Gulf and to customers. So we've seen. In fact, I've got a headline right here. The oil market is in a panic, and Goldman Sachs has come out, used the word panic, and we are all going to wait and see what happens when markets open tomorrow at 9:30 Eastern time. Now on Friday, the oil market spiked, went in a straight line. In fact, I have it here. Give me 1 minute. There you go. That is a 5-year chart of oil, and we are here. We are on this vertical line. We went from 67 to 90 basically instantly. Now you can see that at 90, which was the close price on Friday of the cash markets, that is not particularly high relative to the last 5 years. That's where we were in around August of 2023. The difference is the trajectory. It is vertical. Now we've got a long way to go before we break the local high from 2022. It looks like June 2022, where it hit $120 USD per barrel. So we're a ways from that. But that is an ominous looking trajectory straight up. And the warnings, to use their words, the panic that Goldman Sachs was talking about late Friday or over the weekend had to do with the increased targeting of oil refineries. So oil refineries are being targeted within Iran, and Iran is targeting oil refineries throughout the Gulf. So we will see on Monday, market open, what the sentiment is for the price of oil. The analysts, JP Morgan analysts, Goldman Sachs, in fact, every large trading institution has a desk staffed exclusively with analysts for the energy sector. They know the market inside and out, and they can make projections, and they have done. And in addition to the word panic, which was used by Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan is using the term chaos. And in particular, they are saying that in the coming week, this upcoming week, if the Strait of Hormuz is not reopened, if no tensions are alleviated, then the market starts to act chaotically. Okay? So that's where we're at with the energy, the oil, the drinking water. Of course, we saw footage yesterday, and we'll start going through footage. We'll start poking around, looking for footage and breaking news with our sources in just a minute. But we saw, I believe it was the commercial civilian airport in, was it Bahrain or was it Dubai? We'll find out in a minute. But the point is that that Iran has been targeting civilian infrastructure in the Gulf region. Now, I'm not coming at this with any particular bias. I'm not going to paint a picture of blame. I don't have a particular agenda. I will share my perspectives as they arrive, but we don't know exactly the extent of the strikes that are happening from Israel and the U.S. within Iran. Iran has very limited media coverage. It's the only thing we're getting is on the ground reporting. There's not a lot of internet availability in Iran, so it's tough to get that footage out. So we don't know exactly what all the strikes that are happening within Iran are. It would be fair to assume that things like airports and energy are on the table. And if Iran is suffering those strikes, then fair play for them to reciprocate with strikes of their own with similar targets throughout the Gulf region. So we'll keep an eye on that. Also, Israel, they have been blacking out mainstream media's availability to transmit video footage from cities like Tel Aviv and Haifa whenever there's an inbound missile strike detected. So if there is a strike inbound, we will get the alert, and I'll put it up on the stream. We'll have a map of that. But once the missiles are close enough to a target city in Israel, close enough so that they know generally where it's going to strike. You know, these targeting alerts are like a cone, and they start very broad. And as the projectile gets closer and closer to the target, that cone narrows until you have not only a city but a very specific part of a neighborhood where they believe that strike is going to happen. They can project that. And they are not allowing mainstream media to show video live footage of those strikes. So we don't have a whole lot of footage available from the mainstream, but we will go out and look for on-the-ground coverage. I saw Fasich. Fasich just gave us a nice reaction on Tangled. Here's Anjadali in the chat. And Anjadali is talking to us from Pakistan, which is, let me throw up a map here. there's the Gulf region, and you can see Iran, and then just to the right, or the west, I'm sorry, the east of Iran is Pakistan. So Pakistan is a neighbor of Iran. And Amjadali is saying that they are currently suffering a shortage of petroleum products. Gas stations have been closed without sufficient stock to sell. Prices went up by 22% overnight. That is real-time live feedback from our good friend Amjad Ali, reporting in from Pakistan on news.tangle.com. He says that the black market is spreading its wings. And then Amjad Ali comes in with a question: what do you think about the current scenario? When do you possibly see the end of the war? Now, Amjad Ali is asking that of everyone in the chat. Not just me. He's asking the chat. There's Metal Pack coming in. Fasich is here. Hi. Hi, Fasich. Hi, Metal Pack. Welcome to the inaugural stream, and thanks for the tip, Metal Pack. Thanks for the 50,000. Current scenario is not good. The current scenario is not good. Of course, I think that the current scenario is worse for Iran than it is for Israel and the United States, just from a safety perspective. I don't know what options Iran has other than imposing economic pain on the world that applies then pressure to the United States. I don't think that something like that will apply pressure to Israel as easily as it would to the administration of the United States. I think that Israel has a long history that makes these strikes from their part happen with more conviction perhaps than the United States. I would think that. I think that militarily Iran can't compete with the United States and Israel in a traditional way. Now, they could have some surprises up their sleeve that we'll be keeping our eye out for, but just with known state going up against the United States is tough, very tough. Now, Iran is a big country, physically, geographically, it's big. It's about half the size of Europe. It's the size of Alaska in U.S. terms. And I don't think that anyone wants anything to do with the situation on the ground in Iran. So we saw, I think last Thursday, we saw reports from the U.S. that a rebellion band of Kurds were mounting an attack from the north, I think from Turkmenistan there. And then Iran denied that, and then the Kurds themselves denied that. So I think that that would be a best case scenario for the U.S. To have someone else do the dirty work on the ground for them, because I don't think anyone wants anything to do with a ground incursion in Iran. Metal Pack says, it's funny, I can watch the stream on YouTube, but Untangled is lagging. That is funny, because there is an intentional lag on YouTube. I guess there's an unintentional lag on Tangled. Not much I can do about that right now, so we'll just plod on ahead. Now, I do think, Metal Pack, I think you are also mentioned on the scrolling list of super users on the bottom. I took about the first people that subscribed to news.tangle.com and listed them all there as a special shout out to you guys. I really appreciate the support. And of course, Metal Pack, since I assume you're the only person watching on YouTube, you're doing good work over there, obviously. And the intent of these streams is to expose an audience outside of Tangled to Tangled. That's why we're doing this. Let me see what we can find here. We've got this in from Zero Hedge. Now, I'm going to be curating the sources that I use for these streams. I do like Zero Hedge. I know that they have something of a bias. It's very hard to find a news source that doesn't have any bias. It's helpful if you know what the bias is, so then you can mentally neutralize it. But if you go on, well, you guys know what the bias is and where. If we ever start looking into to Reddit posts and getting our news from Reddit, Reddit has a particular bias, and I would say Zero Hedge is on the other side of that bias. I do like Zero Hedge, however, because they are financially focused. So they are reporting on news and reporting on the news in a way that they believe is tradable. So from that perspective, you would expect that they would put their money where their mouth is. So this headline on Zero Hedge says, "New Supreme Leader Chosen." New Supreme Leader chosen, but the identity has not yet been revealed. It says on Sunday, Iran announced that it had chosen its new and next supreme leader, though the identity remains under wraps for now. And then they say that the new supreme leader, whoever they are, is going to have a big target on their back immediately, and they will. The previous leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was killed in the opening hours of the war on February 28th. So Iran says that the Assembly of Experts has selected the most suitable candidate, and that happened on Sunday, Iran time. Let's see what else we have here. There's a photo. It says that is a still frame of video from a strike on an oil depot in Tehran. I think that, I can't speak for anyone in the chat on Tangled, which is the chat that I'm monitoring. If you want to give me any messages, that's where I'm looking at it. There hasn't been a lot of footage of this war. And so when you do see footage, when you come across some, the real stuff, not the AI slop, which is everywhere, by the way. But when you do see it, the scale of it is shocking to see. Now, I did hear from the U.S. Department of War that the cadence of attacks, the size of the military hardware and firepower in the region exceeds that of the opening days of the Persian Gulf War and the Iraq War. Fasich says the stream is fine on their side. We got a new follower, new subscriber on Tangled, Barca. Welcome, Barca. Hope to see you in the chat. Well, here's why there's a big target on the successor to Khamenei. Israel officials have made it clear that they will strike any figure chosen to replace Khamenei. They didn't say they will try to strike. They didn't say they'd do their best. They said they will strike. That is not what you want to hear Israel say about you if you're looking for a long, peaceful life. So here's some footage. Let's play this. Let's see how the audio works on this. That looks like an oil facility, oil storage perhaps. I see oil tanks there. That's freezing up. Be better, X. Currently, there are reports that the U.S. is contemplating seizing control of Iran's largest oil export terminal on Karg Island. Let's see where that is. Karg Island. So Karg Island is up near the northern part of the Persian Gulf. It is not near the Strait of Hormuz. It's right there. I just put a little pin on it, which disappeared as soon as I started zooming out. So it's right there. So it says, a senior U.S. official vowed to take control of Iran's oil on Friday as the devastating regional conflict triggered by the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran neared its second week. It's in its second week. In fact, it's been just over 1 week. What we want to do, he says, Jared Agin, what we want to do is get such massive oil reserves in Iran out of the hands of the terrorists. So if they want to seize control over that oil terminal on Karg Island, it looks like, since it's an island and it's was that maybe 15 or 20 miles offshore, maybe they could do it with a naval blockade, so nothing can get in and out of it on the surface. There could be a pipeline that's feeding that underwater. They could take care of that too. So yeah, they could do that anytime, I would say. I would say they could do that anytime. That might be difficult for Iran to defend. Okay, the article says Iranian officials are also warning of environmental fallout from the expanding attacks on energy infrastructure. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's not a warning, that's a certainty. I mean, these refineries are getting blown up. We've had at least one oil tanker ship targeted. That's a reasonable warning. And then it says the future of the vital Karg Island looms large as China is still getting some of its oil from there. So China, it's interesting with China, they previously got oil from Venezuela. That's probably no longer the case. And then they get oil from Iran, and that has the potential to be disrupted, although I did see that Iran allowed a Chinese oil ship to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know that the world needs to see what happens when China panics because they don't have enough oil. I don't know if that's a variation that we need to see. Thanks for the like, Metal Pack. You're the best and you always have been. So this article is about a particular incident where an oil refinery was hit, and then it basically caused the oil to rain down on the surrounding area. And they say it looked like black ink, which could contaminate the drinking water supplies. Now, where was this again? Tehran? So here's a video. I'll play the video. It says Tehran at sunrise today, but the sun is hidden behind a sky filled with smoke. I'll play that again. After a night of intensive strikes on oil facilities, thick black clouds now hang over the city. Yeah. That's gross. That's how you get oil rain, oil clouds. That was coming. That video was on X from RKOT. Iran, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, is saying that they will continue striking. I suppose when they say that, I suppose they're talking about neighboring countries. So Kuwait, Saudi, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Qatar, which are then listed. Okay, so Gulf states, including Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi, and the UAE, reported new missile and drone activity, despite the Iranian president Pezeshkian having earlier apologized for the strikes. Now that is interesting that the Iranian president Pezeshkian is apologizing for the strikes that Iran has done in neighboring countries. And it's interesting because it begs the question, who's in charge? Who's in charge? Is the president the commander-in-chief of the IRGC? Is the IRGC the military? Are they acting on their own? That's not clear. But you've got one half of that sending in ballistic missiles, and the other half is apologizing for it. So we don't know. It says Israel also appears to be getting hit by Iranian missiles and drones, and also rockets from Hezbollah from Lebanon in the north. Let's see, we have a tweet here on X from Andrew Day, and it's got a video. I'll play the video in a second. Let me read what it says here. Notable contrast between some drooling American expert talking about installing a pragmatic leader in Tehran and Tehran delivering a missile to its target in Tel Aviv. Our elites do not understand the country that we're at war at. Okay, let's watch the video. So that was a strike in Tel Aviv. Looks like we're not getting video. Video audio is not coming in. So that is that video footage would not have come. I imagine would not have come from mainstream media. That would have been on the ground and then shopped to the networks, because that explicitly showed a missile strike in Tel Aviv, Israel, and Israel is not allowing those strikes to be broadcast. Here we go. This is one of our headlines. Iranian drone strike caused material damage, that is significant damage, to a desalination plant in Bahrain. I was looking to see if that is not how I thought you spelled desalination. Desalination. Not only did I spell it wrong, I might be pronouncing it wrong too. But luckily, the headline, I changed it to water supplies targeted. The incident follows Iranian accusations that U.S. forces bombed a freshwater desalination facility on Keshem Island days earlier, which Tehran described as setting a precedent. Let me look for Keshem Island. There is Keshem Island. That is on the let's see. That is on the Iranian side. of the Strait of Hormuz. It is that island just off the coast on the north of the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, so the accusation from Iran is that the desalinization plant on Keshem Island was struck by U.S. forces. And they say that sets precedent for them to do the same thing. Now, I don't know what happens when desalinization plants in the Middle East get destroyed. So much of the water, the vast majority, 60 to 90% of drinking water comes from those facilities. Here's a tweet from Trita Parsi, and I'll go over to X in a second. We'll get some more current stuff here in a second. I just want to see what this says. We've got Wolf Blitzer on CNN saying that many Iranian Americans were happy to see Khamenei killed, but they're turning against the war after it becomes clear that the country is being destroyed. Yeah. Okay, let's go over. Just getting used to my setup here. I'll keep a map up. Okay, I'm going to fire up the breaking news here. Pull this in. We've got 5 minutes ago. This is 5 minutes ago. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, says Abu al-Qassem Baba'yan, the head of the military. I'm just going to say it's the head of the military for Iran because there's a lot of words there, and I don't know what all of them mean. And so I think that's probably it. Is dead, has been eliminated, they said. So that is the head of the military office of the supreme leader and the chief of staff of the Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters. That's a long title, okay? Maybe this is more succinct. He was responsible for coordinating between the Iran and I suppose Iran and the military. That's just not very clear, IDF. His elimination joins a series of eliminations of senior figures in the Iranian terror regime. That's their words, not mine. Conducted by the IDF since the beginning of Operation Roaring Lion. Okay. Let me see what else we have. I'm going to go back to the map while I scroll around a little bit. War Monitor, the X account War Monitor, is saying there has never been a clearer example of Americans dying for Israel than this war. I'm going to pull up something else for you guys to look at while I scroll through this. There are some live cams. These are not the best cams, but as I mentioned, good cams are really hard to come by in the current environment because Iran doesn't want to broadcast, and Israel also doesn't want to broadcast. So we've got on these cams, we've got the airport in Tel Aviv, Israel. We've got a very blurry, grainy shot, nighttime skyline of Tehran, Iran. We've got South Israel, Haifa, which has been the site of a lot of missile attacks. North Israel, which is the border of Lebanon, which would be where Hezbollah rockets would be coming in from. Then we've got the skyline of Beirut, another of Haifa, and then there's an Isfahan missile site in Iran, but that one is currently dark. I have seen that one running, but I'm not sure who's allowing that and why they would show that. These cams are being provided by Intel Cams on YouTube. So shout out to Intel Cams. Senior American official confirms that President Trump's envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, will be arriving in Israel on Tuesday. N12 News reports the same thing. I don't know. That doesn't sound like big news to me. We've got news of a bomb threat at the Kansas City International Airport. I don't have any more information on that. I don't know if it's related. Total ground stop at the Kansas City Airport. I'll show you. Notice everyone leaving the airport in Kansas City. There's Michael Joseph Ratcliffe in the chat. He says, we should just bomb some more schools. That'll teach him. He's talking about the school in Iran that was destroyed. And I assume everyone in the school was also destroyed. And the current thought is that that was done by the United States. And I say that because the United States announced that they were going to investigate themselves. Now, to be fair and balanced on that, I did, when that happened a few days ago, I did look at satellite imagery of that school. It's basically next door to a military installation, and you know, I won't paint any more of a picture than that. Israel does the same thing. Israel does the same thing. They place their interceptor launch facilities in the middle of metro areas, which are surrounded by civilians. So, not good practice if it's done with bad intention. It is done with whatever intention on both sides. "38 minutes ago, Hezbollah claimed a rocket attack on Israel's logistic base." Claiming a rocket attack is easy to do. You're claiming the attempt. Now, the results, we don't know. But we do know that it has been very difficult for Hezbollah to get their rockets through the Iron Dome. Historically speaking, it's been very difficult. 39 minutes ago on Newsmax, They're saying that Donald Trump said on Saturday that he would not rule out sending U.S. troops into Iran. Leaving open the possibility of a ground mission to secure Iranian nuclear material, as he signaled the conflict could widen. Okay, it's fair to say that you're not ruling it out. It's more fair to say, think twice, and then think a third time, and then don't do it. What else do we have? I've got to get, so as I do more of these news live streams, I'll get better at curating and having some guardrails up for what I think meets the criteria of credible news and what doesn't. What I'm about to give you is kind of this is a gray area. I mean, 10 streams from now, I might not mention this. Al Jazeera says the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran could leave consumers and businesses worldwide facing weeks or months of higher fuel prices, even if the conflict ends quickly, as suppliers grapple with damaged facilities and disrupted logistics. That I don't. I mean, I'm mentioning it just because I'm finding my feet here, but that's really obvious. That's really obvious. So good job, Al Jazeera, for stating the obvious. Al Jazeera is saying 51 minutes ago that Israel has pummeled Lebanon with over 100 aerial strikes over the past day. I don't know that that's a lot relative to the past 2 years that Israel's been engaging in Lebanon. I don't know if 100 in a day is a lot. That's also from Al Jazeera. Rami Gwader, hello. Well, Rami joins us in the chat on Tangle.com. I'm continuing coverage here of war in the Middle East. I'm looking for updates to share with you. Saudi Arabia is reporting its first death in the war, saying a military projectile killed an Indian and a Bangladeshi within the borders of Saudi Arabia. That's not good. Yeah, hi, Rami. Sorry it took me a while to shout you out, but I did it. I did it. So we looked at Keshem on the map. Here's video. This is attack on the fuel tank at the Keshem airport. So that looks like maybe 50,000 gallon, 200,000 liters of jet fuel could have been in one of those tanks. Let's see what this is. Saudis intercepting Iranian drones. That is footage on War Monitor. I heard reports that the United States is requesting assistance from Ukraine in how to counter drone strikes. And Michael Joseph Ratcliffe, you had mentioned on a post, I don't remember if it was a comment on one of my posts or I commented on one of yours. I had mentioned that the UK and France were peripherally involved. I believe at the time that I said that, the report was that the UK was offering aerial refueling. Then I believe after that they conceded access to some airfields for the United States to conduct operations from. France deployed its aircraft carrier, the Charles de Gaulle. It deployed that to the Eastern Mediterranean, which is just offshore of Israel, Lebanon, and Syria. I don't know if anything more has come of that. And in France, it's hard to know. Listening to Macron, it's hard to know exactly what their policy is regarding this war. They're deploying on the one hand and they're criticizing it on the other hand. Now, France does have a historical relationship with Lebanon, and Lebanon did reach out to France and said, "Please make the attacks stop." I'm not going to show any video footage that's warning me about graphic content. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to watch it myself. I'm going to look for some more updates for you guys. So here's a similar video to the last one we saw. This is coming out of the United Arab Emirates. In fact, some of these scenes match the last one we saw. This is a U.S. Apache AH-64 gunship shooting down drones as they fly through the United Arab Emirates en route to a target. Those drones, the ones that we're looking at, they don't go that fast, which is why a helicopter is able to intercept them. So I assume, I guess based on the way that this is written, that helicopter is deployed and manned by the UAE military. I'll show you this. This is from Flight Radar 24. This is posted by OSINT Technical on X. A U.S. Navy MQ-4C Triton drone conducting reconnaissance missions over the Iranian city of Bushehr this afternoon. So I had looked earlier. Let me see if I have that. I believe it's right here. So I asked Luna AI, the AI agent on Tangled. I asked it about the MQ-4C, this drone. It is, according to Luna, It's an unmanned aerial vehicle developed by Northrop Grumman for the United States Navy. It's part of the Triton series, and it's used for surveillance and reconnaissance missions, particularly at sea. So it has sensors that allow it to detect ships and submarines. So for some reason, they are watching that particular harbor or bay off the coast of Iran. Now, when I first read that, and I saw, so it's purpose for maritime operations, fine, but it lists the sensor platform as having electro-optical and infrared sensors. I don't think that you can detect submarines with either of those. Unless from an optical sensor standpoint, unless you had like a large wavelength colored laser. I don't know what color that would be. Blue, maybe? Blue or green? Generally, you're detecting submarines either from sound, which a drone wouldn't be able to do because you can't. A helicopter can, because it basically drops a microphone into the water. Or at least in the past, you detected submarines by with magnet detection. So the submarines, which are made out of metal, can be distinguished from the magnetic force or field from the Earth. So you can detect them that way. I don't know that it would be hard to detect. First of all, I don't know if Iran has submarines. Let me look. And if they did, I don't know how hard it would be to detect them. So according to Gemini, Iran has somewhere about 30 submarines. And including the Russian-built Kilo class, which is a diesel electric. So those, when it comes to the stealthiness of submarines, being not able to detect them, you've got the United States, and then you've got everyone else far behind. They're just noisy. You can just pick them up. At least the United States can pick them up. So maybe the drone can pick up Iranian submarines. I wouldn't imagine that a drone could pick up a U.S. submarine. Let me keep looking here. How long are we into the stream? How are we doing so far? 39 minutes, no, 57 minutes. We're 57 minutes in. All right. Now, ideally, I should be able to cruise through 5 hours of one of these streams, ideally. But the first one's always the hardest. This, I'm going to show this video. I don't think that there's anything too graphic in it. This was posted by OSINT Technical, and you can see the fire ripping down the sidewalk. And it says that there were petroleum products leaking from the Shahran oil depot. And so it was in the storm drains. The oil was in the storm drains. And then somehow it ignited and then went right down the sidewalk. Well, that's weird. Weird stuff happens in war. Of course, technically, are we supposed to call it a war yet? This seems like open war to me. This seems like open war. Aside from no troops on the ground, I don't think that Iran is holding back on its targeting, and the United States and Israel, we don't know. We don't know. Now, relative to the capability of the United States and Israel, I think it'd be fair to say that they are holding back, but they hit a school. And it doesn't matter I mean, it really doesn't matter if that was intentional or not, right? They hit a school. They killed over 100 kids. I wonder what a good way is for me to get like to look at one thing and to have all recent relevant pieces of news like on X, how to see those. Let's see, what else do we have? This is from N12 News in Israel. And they are saying that there are tensions between the US military and Israel over the attack on oil facilities in Iran. Senior American security officials said the Israelis told us in advance about the attacks against the oil facilities, but they didn't say they would be so extensive. We don't think it was a good idea. That is reported by Barak Ravid from N12 News. That's another little piece of news that I probably wouldn't repeat. It's not super informative. It's anonymous. It's not actionable. Now this is interesting. I'll just show this. I don't know what to make of this. Syria's Kurds caution Iranian Kurds against aligning with the US against Tehran. I didn't know that there were Syrian Kurds and Iranian Kurds. I thought there were Kurds. Hey, Floratus, thanks for joining the stream. Thanks for joining us in the chat. This is the first stream from Tangled News. You're watching it. And thanks for the tip. Thanks for the 50,000. Wow. Thanks for that. Okay, so some Kurds are warning other Kurds not to attack Iran. Okay. The Israeli military, this is from Al Jazeera, the Israeli military says it killed 5 people at a hotel in Beirut, including 3 alleged commanders with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, their Quds force. We know that I want to be precise when I say this, but I guess I can't be totally precise. We know that Hezbollah and the IRGC in Iran have a relationship. They have an alliance. They support each other. I'll only mention it because I spent this morning watching it. It has nothing to do with the war in the Middle East. The first Formula One race of the 2026 season took place last night, or about, let's say, 16 hours ago in Australia. And it was Mercedes 1-2 and Ferrari 3-4. And one of my favorite drivers, Kimi Antonelli, the 19-year-old from Mercedes, took the number 2 spot. It was very cool. Here's something we talked about earlier. from Al Jazeera. Bahrain says an Iranian drone attack caused material damage to a water desalination plant, marking the first time a Gulf nation has reported targeting of such a facility during the U.S.-Israel war in Iran. In fact, that might be the first time in history, not just during this particular conflict. And we're looking at a picture, and that may be a desalination plant. I mean, it looks like there are those yellow trucks. They look like those could be water carriers, but hard to say. But what we do know is the guy with his briefcase is calling it a day. He's calling it a day. He's going home. How long is this going to last? That was a question. Who asked that? Fasich? Maybe Amjad Ali. How long is this going to last? Well, the Israeli ambassador to the U.S. says he agrees with the Trump administration assessment that it'll last just a few weeks. That's what every single attacking force has said in the history of military attacks. It's very easy to underestimate how difficult it is to combat a defending force. Here, I'll play this because it prompted a thought. This is from CNN. Investigators are scrutinizing the scene in Tel Aviv, Israel, to determine if there's a new Iranian missile technology being deployed. And I mentioned that, and I show that because there is a theory that Iran is sending waves of less modern munitions, rockets and missiles, to force the Israelis, the U.S., and the neighboring Gulf countries who are supported by the U.S. to consume their stockpile of anti-air missiles. And then once those stockpiles are consumed, then Iran will bring out a higher caliber of munitions, more sophisticated, more powerful. That's a theory. It takes some thought to put yourself into the perspective of Iran as they try to get themselves through this, because they're so overpowered militarily. So they're going to have to display some adaptability and some creativity and be clever in how they counter an overpowering opposing force. I'm going to do a search for trending news for the Iran war. The problem is, what I know I'm going to run into is a bunch of AI slop. And it has to be said, based on my my exposure to the AI slop so far, that the people supporting Iran in this conflict are not skilled at Photoshop and AI videos. It just has to be said. Here's another view. We looked at that oil that had flowed into the storm drains from the refinery that was attacked. There's another shot of just a line of fire. It's basically the gutter where the oil ran off from the attacked refinery. I'll show this. I cannot claim whether this is real or not. Looks pretty real. I don't know when this was shot. I don't know if it's related at all. But according to Thomas Keith on X, this is a public social insurance building in Kuwait, which was hit by a swarm of Iranian suicide drones. I cannot vouch for the authenticity of that. Let me look at this. So Mario Nafal is saying that the Jerusalem Post claims that the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, that they struck a desalinization plant in Iran. The UAE struck a desalinization plant in Iran. I don't know if that's verified. That is a claim of a claim by the Jerusalem Post. I don't know. This is footage presented by Al Jazeera. Saying that the US and Israel have struck civilian sites, including at least 20 schools and 10 hospitals. I can tell you, you're not going to see this covered in the media in the United States. The only way to see this stuff is on alternative media and social media. Let me go back to the beginning of this because it shows kind of a skyline view of the scale. So I feel like most Americans are isolated from the video footage of what's actually happening, both in Iran and in Israel. Here's more coverage that the US and Israel are considering special forces raids, which would be boots on the ground on Iran's enriched uranium stockpile. Now, I had read that if this collection of videos we're looking at from Intel cams, the one on the bottom right, that is the Isfahan missile site in Iran. You can't tell much. It looks like a warehouse or aircraft hangars or something at night. And I had heard a report that underneath that site, the Isfahan missile site, is where the enriched uranium used to be. Could still be there, but but I don't know. A lot of unconfirmed news. That I suppose doesn't bear repeating. Now, I'll show you this. I guess I'm not as invested in the conspiracy theories, and I don't say that term in a derogatory way. I don't have anything against conspiracy theories in general. In fact, I like the definition that a conspiracy theorist is someone who refuses to believe known liars. So I got no problem with conspiracy theories. But there is a theory that that Trump is trying to deflect away from the Epstein files, first with Venezuela, then with Iran. And if this screenshot that you're looking at is to be believed, it's showing that the Google searches for the Epstein files have fallen off a cliff. Fallen off a cliff. Now that could be a normal half-life for attention span, or it could be people are focused on the Iranian war, and if it was intended as a distraction, the distraction is working. Personally, I don't think that. My personal opinion is I don't think that Trump worries. I don't think he spends any time in his life worrying about the Epstein files. And take that for what take that at face value. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have reason to. I just don't think that he does. Here's a video showing the drones used by Iran. They've become slightly famous for their drone technology in the past few years because they provided, if not the drones themselves, the blueprints for the drones for Russia to manufacture and use against Ukraine. So these shots aren't that interesting, but it is interesting. Let me go back to the beginning. You can see these things. They deploy out of that's basically the trailer for a truck, and they're stacked in there. There's like 6 drones inside each one of the trailers. They drive the trailer someplace, and then the drones just fly out of the trailer. They carry 90 kilograms, about call it 200 pounds of explosives. They can travel 4,000 miles or 4,000 kilometers, which is about 2,500 miles, and they cost $20,000. So you do not want You do not want to fire $1 million Patriot missile to kill a $20,000 drone. And that's what's happening. So that is asymmetric. And that is probably why the United States is asking for consultation from Ukraine on defending against drones. Switzerland is saying that the U.S. Israeli campaign against Iran is a violation of international law. That is from the Spectator Index. Here's Al Jazeera saying that a spokesperson, this is 1 minute ago, spokesperson for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has warned that if airstrikes continue against its energy facilities, similar attacks will be carried out in the Middle East. Well, that would be a continuation of what's already happening. But you can see on the map there what happens if I do this. Iran's oil facilities. Iran is the 9th largest oil producer in the world, with the vast majority of its crude exports flowing through Karg Island, which we talked about, and exiting via the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is a transit point for more than 20% of the world's seaborne oil. And Karg Island, which we've seen reports that the U.S. wants to take control of, Karg Island accounts for 90% of Iran's oil exports. We've got reports of explosions in Tehran right now. So what is it? It's almost 3:00 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States. I am broadcasting from Miami. So it's almost 3:00 here. And what time does that make it? It is 10:21 p.m. in Tehran, Iran, right now. So that if the last week, the cadence that we've seen is picked up, I'd say starting now, maybe in an hour, that's when the aerial assaults tend to pick up in intensity around the Middle East. Now the question is, where am I going to see reports of particular strikes? War Monitor on X is saying that Israeli media says Israel is preparing for another 5 weeks of war until Passover, which is a religious holiday. N12 News is reporting that the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, has spoken with the Iranian president on the phone. And Macron is emphasizing the need to stop attacking countries in the region. I don't know how that call went. Like we talked about, the president of Iran, Pezeshkian, I'd say there's some doubt as to whether he's in control of the military in Iran. So he might have agreed with President Emmanuel Macron. He might have agreed. He might also not be able to do anything about it. We don't know. Here's a report from Newsmax. I don't know whether to believe this. Donald Trump is praising the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, and said she was willing to help the United States and Israel in their war with Iran. That was reported by an Italian media. I don't know. I mean, Trump says a lot of things, and helping is a pretty vague statement. So I don't know what to read into that just yet. Take a look at this. The Israeli military says it destroyed the headquarters of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' Air Force in Tehran, which it says was used to coordinate missile and drone operations against Israel and other regional targets. Now, I think that none of the politics, policy, infrastructure, and readiness is new in any of this. I think that Israel and Iran have long thought about how to attack and how to defend against each other. So the Israeli military is saying that they destroyed this building, but are there 5 other buildings that are also used for the same thing? Probably. I'm still looking for updates to let you guys know what's going on. Here's an article on Zero Hedge. I'll just show you the headline. There is says after Democrats' record-breaking and useless drain, Schumer demands Trump release oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve immediately. That's not what it's for. That's not what it's for. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve does not exist to moderate market fluctuations in the cost of fuel. It's strategic. It's so the country can continue to operate, and the military in particular, in the worst case scenario. It's not to cut 20 cents off the gallon of each gallon of gas. That's not what it's for. So this is the inventory level. This graph is the inventory level of what's in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in the United States. You can see that generally it's up around 700,000 barrels. And then during COVID, I believe, it was drained and then started to be refilled again around 2024. So yeah, if I was in charge, I would not be releasing anything from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to lessen the price of fuel. If you want to lessen the price of fuel, don't bomb countries in the Middle East. That's step one. If you are bombing countries in the Middle East and the price of fuel goes high, that's the choice you've made. But don't touch the SPR. Don't touch the Strategic Reserve. The Russian Kremlin is saying we are not neutral. We support Iran. What does that mean? What does that mean? I mean, if you're Iran and you don't have a weaponized nuclear program, but you're supported by a country that does, to some extent, does that mean that that arsenal is inherited? Al Jazeera is reporting that the strikes on Iran are continuing, which, I mean, they never really stopped, I'm sure, but the time of day is when the cadence picks up again. And according to Al Jazeera, the nature of the strikes are oil storage depots and refining facilities in Tehran, which it says is the first time. There you go. Oh, we got Michael Joseph Radcliffe. We got Rami in the chat on YouTube. I just saw. Hopefully that means they subbed up. We're trying to get to some subscribers on YouTube. All the audience is on Tangled at the moment. Tangled has the best people. A lot of people are talking about it. The U.S. State Department says it's completed nearly 24 charter flights and evacuated more than 32,000 American citizens from the Middle East. That's good. Let's see what else I can find. See, the pre-market on Wall Street opens in I think 4 hours. I think that'll be our first indication of seeing the effect on the oil markets. Yeah, so oil went up 35% last week. Which is the biggest jump since 1983. With Israel and the United States targeting refineries, and Iran saying that if you target our refineries, we're going to target everyone else's refineries, I'd say that there is a chance that the oil price is going to go north. And we should see that in about 4 hours. Now, let's see, crypto. So Bitcoin is basically flat today for Bitcoin. It's down 0.7%. Bitcoin has been the canary in the coal mine the past few weeks because it trades on the weekends. And it does indicate or foretell changes in the broader markets when they are open. So let's see, what does Bitcoin do the last couple of days? What we'd want to see is what happened since Friday. So today is the 8th. It's down $500. It's down maybe 1%. So Bitcoin's not saying much. Bitcoin is not saying that a big change will happen at pre-market. Now it could. I mean, Bitcoin moves in and out of a correlation all the time. So take it for what it's worth, but Bitcoin's not moving a lot. I'm just selecting that scene because I want to look at something else off camera here. Okay, guys, I'm gonna stop the stream. I'm just gonna go watch the news myself. Try to establish a longer list of sources so I can stay in tune while I'm doing these streams. And things will probably start picking up here. I think that my live streaming hero, Steve Lookner on Agenda Free TV, will probably come on air soon. Oh, Rami says, how is it affecting Millix? Millix won't be affected. Millix won't be affected. The size of the Millix market is still too small for global events like this to affect it, I think. Rami says about Bitcoin, the institutions will liquidate their reserves ASAP. Yeah, that does tend to happen. When other markets crash, like the oil market would cause other markets to crash, even while the oil market's ripping. But yeah, when there's stress in the financial system, which this is causing, then the response to that is you don't sell what you want to sell, you sell what you're able to sell. And yeah, Bitcoin has been the victim of that a few times in the last 6 months. And that could continue. It is the world's most pristine asset. Okay, guys. Thanks, Rami. Thanks, Floratus. Thanks, Michael Joseph Radcliffe. Thanks, Fasich. Thanks, Metal Pack. Thank you to Amjad Dali and everyone who subbed up already. on news.tangle.com. I really appreciate all the guys I just mentioned who also did me a solid by subbing up on YouTube. And maybe I'll do another one of these streams on Tangled and YouTube before I throw X into the live stream mix. So that is what's going on today on Sunday, March 8th with the war in the Middle East. And if anything happens, I will come back on air and cover it for you guys. Talk to you later.